I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, confused and upset. Drug abuse prevention advocates sounding off on changes from the FDA, the prescription painkiller that may hurt young patients.
And I'm Peggy Pico with an in-depth look at concerns over senior doctors who work well into their 70s and sometimes 80s, how one San Diego hospital is assessing doctors and the impact of aging on patient care.
A sign of the times in San Diego, the next neighborhood spelling out a street art tradition of its own. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining us. Protecting California's food supply, state leaders placed part of San Diego under a new fruit fly quarantine today. The state's Food and Ag Department says it covers 93 square miles. The discovery of 4 insects in La Mesa prompted workers to set up 1,300 traps. Nearby properties are being treated with organic insecticide. The pest can infest more than 250 types of fruits and vegetables. New marching orders for active duty military members. They're being called on to fight scores of wildfires racing out of control here in California and other western states. The National Interagency Fire Center called in 200 military troops to help contain roughly 95 western wildfires. On the fire lines in California, National Guard members are helping more than 12,000 firefighters. Another patient rights debate revived today at the state capitol. It may lead to another showdown between right-to-die advocates and religious leaders. Democratic lawmakers introduced a bill that would allow a terminally ill patient to end her life under a doctor's care. The measure bypasses a health committee where a similar bill stalled last month.
It's going to be a race, but for many terminally ill patients, they have little time, and unfortunately, many terminally ill patients will not benefit from this law, but there are families who will benefit if we can succeed this year to have this option, to have a compassionate choice in the dying process.
Religious groups and Democratic lawmakers who lost parents to cancer opposed the last attempt to pass a right-to-die measure in California. Scrambling for health care funding, state lawmakers are considering a new tax to cover doctors' visits for patients in need. The issue? Paying for Medi-Cal services for 9 million Californians. One proposal would tax managed care organizations to avert changes from D.C. health care funding. Supporters say the costs could be passed on to consumers. Critics argue there may be a better source of funding. Drug abuse prevention advocates are blasting a decision by the FDA approving the use of the narcotic OxyContin for children. From our North County Bureau, KPBS health reporter Kenny Goldberg says prescription overdoses are the leading cause of accidental death nationwide.
The FDA says OxyContin can be prescribed for kids as young as 11 who suffer from severe pain. But the agency says it's only appropriate for children who haven't gotten relief from other treatments. Sherry Rubin is with the San Diego County Prescription Drug Abuse Task Force. She thinks giving narcotics to kids is a terrible idea.
It has been proven to be a highly addictive, mind-altering drug, and I'm concerned that parents are not going to be educated to understand what they're giving to their children.
OxyContin is one of the most widely prescribed narcotic painkillers. The CDC says 16,000 Americans died from narcotic-related overdoses in 2013. Kenny Goldberg, KPBS News.
A medical milestone for women today. The FDA approved the first prescription drug to boost sexual desire in women. Approval comes with safety restrictions on the daily pill. There is a bold warning on alcohol use, which may cause dangerously low blood pressure and fainting. Clinical trials for the pill were held in San Diego and across the nation. Farmers are feeling the heat from the state's drought. A new study estimates over $1 billion in agricultural losses from the 4th straight year of drought, with 500,000 acres uncultivated. UC Davis researchers say the drought will cost about 10,000 seasonal jobs this year. Protecting grocery workers caught up in consolidation. San Diego Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez proposed the measure signed into law Monday. It requires grocery stores to retain employees after a change in ownership. They have to stay on the job for at least 90 days. The new law comes just days after the Hagen grocery store chain announced it would put up 27 stores for sale. 6 are located in San Diego County. City Heights wants to be the next San Diego community with a gateway sign. Neighbors are trying to raise about $300,000 to hang a neon sign above University Avenue. The project got KPBS reporter Megan Burks wondering, what's the big deal with these signs?
San Diegans love their neighborhood signs. Communities from Encinitas to Chula Vista don't just have them, they celebrate them. Those fireworks marked the 25th anniversary of the restoration of the Hillcrest sign. While most communities opt for a modest concrete or wood sign on the side of the road, San Diego County seems to go big and elaborate. El Cajon's sign over Main Street has lighting effects that change with the temperature.
East San Diego had a sign kind of like the Wheel of Fortune letters. Each letter was kind of its own little box on a track.
Kenton Finkbeiner says now it's time for City Heights to show off. He's leading a campaign for private donations to bring a neighborhood sign back to his community, which used to be called East San Diego. Its first sign, the one with the Wheel of Fortune letters, hung in the early 1900s at the border of City Heights and North Park.
Sometime during the Prohibition era, I'm guessing somewhere in the 1920s, 1930s, that sign at Boundary was removed and it was replaced at the corner of University and Fairmont.
Community members want to put their sign here, where the neighborhood's second sign hung from 1954 to 1968.
The city had to remove it to widen the street. The new sign would have neon lights, marquee-style light bulbs, and cast concrete posts with designs celebrating the neighborhood's diversity.
City Heights is an interesting neighborhood. It really struggles, in my opinion, for identity. It's one of those things where you've got so many people coming and going that there's very, very few uniting factors. What is the one thing that we can all unify under? And that is things like bits of architecture, things that give the neighborhood kind of that's what we're about, that's what we look like.
Finkbeiner bought and remodeled a foreclosure in the neighborhood in 2008. He says his pitch to longtime residents to put up a sign wasn't a slam dunk. Many in the community are wary of gentrification.
Before we even got to a look, we spent 5 or 6 once-a-month meetings talking about what was it going to do to the neighborhood.
So what do these signs do for neighborhoods?
There's not a day goes by that I don't see someone out there taking a photograph in front of the arch.
Luann Holsizer heads the 3rd Avenue Village Association in Chula Vista. She says the sign there set the pace for economic development along 3rd Avenue.
We have found and discovered even in the last few years, it becomes a place of destination, it becomes a meeting place. So now people can say, let's go to the village, let's go to the 3rd Avenue Village, let's meet for dinner, let's shop, let's dine there. Here we have the 3rd Avenue Ale House. It'll be our first tasting room.
Holsizer credits the sign and branding that spun off of it with bringing the community its first craft beer bar. 3rd Avenue Ale House is scheduled to open later this year. But 6 miles north in Barrio Logan, Rachel Ortiz says a sign's meaning is all in how you read it.
And then in 1970, it was our first barrio station.
She grew up in Barrio Logan and has run a community nonprofit there since the 70s. In that time, Ortiz has pushed back against junkyard operators, waterfront businesses, downtown developers, even homeless service providers who had their eyes on Barrio Logan land.
A lot of the houses that I used to go to as a teenager, junkyard owners bought them and slapped fences around them. It's, oh my God, my community, it's disappearing,
With funding from the port, Ortiz and her neighbors raised their neighborhood sign in December.
It's a sign of body resistance to gentrification, body resistance to being gobbled up by the waterfront industries.
So what will a neighborhood sign bring to City Heights? The only thing for certain is a stake in San Diego tradition and something to celebrate.
It's one of those things that kind of includes us, like, hey, City Heights is really trying and doing its best job to really come up in the world.
Megan Burks, KPBS News.
KPBS video journalist Katie Shulov helped produce that story. City leaders and community members broke ground today on a playground in southeastern San Diego. The $1.6 million project was a long time coming. Neighbors first drafted plans in 1987 for a new playground in the Mountain View Community Park. It took nearly 3 decades for enough money to trickle in. Shelley White was born in Mountain View 82 years ago. He says the park he played in wasn't all that different from the one there today.
I feel relieved. That's probably going to happen because it takes a long time for they get something done.
The playground is scheduled to open this time next year. There's a new 250-unit high-rise in downtown San Diego with great city views and just blocks from a major trolley stop. But this high-rise is different. It's an affordable rental development built specifically for low-income families and medically frail seniors.
Sometimes I go for a walk, I look at the moon.
George Rogers is doing something he thought he'd never be able to do again, play his favorite instrument while standing on 2 feet. Today, he's not only standing, but living in a high-rise studio apartment in one of the least affordable cities in the country.
Being up this high and having a view, I've never had it before. It's different. It's pretty cool.
Celadon at 9th and Broadway has partnered with St. Paul's PACE program to provide 63 units in this eco-friendly building to help get a critical population off the streets. Low-income seniors, like Rogers, who was living out of his car for 2 years and suffered a series of medical problems.
They removed the bottom third of my right lung, and then I had 2 strokes.
Rogers says he hit rock bottom until he got a call from someone who told him about PACE and how they help keep seniors in permanent homes with full medical and social support.
She says, you got accepted in our program. And I broke down and started crying right there. I had never qualified. I'm going to be honest. I had never qualified for anything in my life.
He struggled with a lot of medical issues and really wasn't able to live at home by himself. Add to that his inability to find a place to live means that he's ideal to qualify for St. Paul's PACE and the Celadon project.
The project works by bringing 2 different groups together. Celadon to provide low-income housing for people 55 and older who qualify, and PACE with full medical and social support under one roof. That's a combination Rogers couldn't be more happy with.
19 of the 63 units for seniors are filled at Celadon. St. Paul's PACE program is also looking for donations to help fill the units. You can find more information online at stpaulspace.org. San Diego biotech giant Illumina launched a new company today. KPBS science reporter David Wagner says its goal is to help consumers better understand their genome.
The company is called Helix. It's Illumina's first major push toward direct-to-consumer genetics. This is a field currently dominated by 23andMe. And Helix hasn't provided many details yet, but they say they're going to start next year giving consumers new ways to learn about their genealogy and their personal health. The Mayo Clinic's Keith Stewart says his organization will be on board to educate people about what their genetic variants actually mean.
In some ways, this could be somewhat disruptive. In other ways, it should lead to improved understanding of genomics for the consumer and how it can help them and hopefully result in better health care.
Stewart says Helix is going to be working closely with the FDA on this. Other direct-to-consumer companies like 23andMe have stopped offering personal health information due to regulatory hurdles. David Wagner, KPBS News.
Into their retirement years, there's a call for better screening of older doctors from the American Medical Association. Dr. Paul Speckert has concerns on how that might play out.
The screening process seems a bit kind of unnecessary. If you take a look at some of the guidelines that have been proposed, they're very onerous, they're very complicated, and very expensive. And I'm not so sure how you would make it work in a smooth, efficient fashion.
Speckert sits on the Medical Executive Committee at Scripps Mercy in Hillcrest. Peggy Pico has a closer look at the issue.
A lot of people work past retirement, well into their 60s, 70s, and sometimes beyond. But when it comes to physicians who make life and death decisions every day, age can be a concern. San Diego medical facilities are approaching the controversial topic in different ways, including a local facility that screens older doctors. Here with further details are my guest, Cheryl Clark, reporting for KPBS news partner iNewsSource, and Dr. David Bazzo, director of the Aging Physicians Assessment Program at UC San Diego School of Medicine. And Cheryl, let's start with you here. What's the age range of these physicians that we're talking about in the U.S. And here in San Diego as far as defining senior?
Well, I think we're talking about doctors who are, say, over age 65. Some medical groups say an older doctor is over age 70. Some are pushing it out to 75. So it's really all over the map. Nationally, the American Medical Association has done a survey, and they've discovered that 242,000 of the nation's physicians are over the age of 65, and some of them, including surgeons, are practicing into their 70s and even into their 80s.
How about in San Diego? Like one in, how many would you say?
It would be about 1 in 4 doctors are practicing over the age of 65.
Let me talk to Dr. Bazzo about this. Specifically, what kind of skills or job functions for doctors are of concern for those who are working 65, 75 and beyond?
Well, I think you can compare physicians to the general population. The same issues that happen with the regular person as they're aging happens to the regular doctor. Sometimes you slow down a little bit, your stamina may decrease, perhaps your fine motor skills might suffer a little bit, your cognition may slow, and you actually may be more prone to having some cognitive deficits. You know, I forgot where my keys are, or perhaps even further than that, some of your analytical reasoning skills may start to decrease a little bit too.
Well, I know the AMA recently, as you mentioned, Cheryl, issued new guidelines to address this issue. And you're actually working with this program, PACE, that screens older doctors. So what do you screen? How does that work?
Yeah, so we actually were looking at health and wellness in kind of the broadest sense of the term. We're looking at screening physicians' general health. We do a history and physical examination on them. We do 2 types of cognitive screening to look at their mental functioning. We look at depression screening. We look at anxiety screening. We look at substance abuse. And we actually get a little picture also of their practice and what they do, what kind of education they get, how much vacation do they take, you know, what are their hours, how many patients per day they see, all of these things that might impact a person's ability to practice.
So that seems pretty comprehensive. Cheryl, what are doctors saying about the ones that you talk to about this aging issue and maybe even doing screening programs like this?
Well, as you can imagine, it's all over the map. A lot of doctors I've spoken with, and I've probably interviewed at least 20 of them, on this issue. Some of them say, well, yeah, I know some guys who shouldn't be practicing anymore, but I'm not one of them. They realize that there needs to be some way to address the issue. But a lot of doctors are very defensive about it, and they say, you know what, it's really other doctors, younger doctors, who cause a lot of the patient harm that we see in hospitals and ambulatory care centers. So maybe we should screen everybody.
Then that's one point. And Dr. Bazzo, so I want to ask, why do you think doctors are working longer? Why are they, why is that number quadrupled since 1970?
Yeah, I think there's a number of different reasons. First of all, doctors are part of the baby boomer generation, and we're just entering into the age 65. We're actually aging better than we ever had. We're able to be, 65 is the new 55 or whatever colloquialism you want to use on that. But, people are still doing quite well into their later ages. And, what we don't want to do is prohibit people from having healthy aging and really contributing to society, because, there is a looming physician shortage. We don't want to, we want to make sure people don't leave early, but we also want to make sure that they're staying safely.
Okay, and we'll have to follow up on that aging physicians and the impact.
I wanted to mention, too, that older doctors really have something to offer, too. They have a lot more experience. They know their patients. And it would be just a shame to really write all of that off.
Of course.
With just, as a categorical cutoff point.
Yes,
You know.
and so much to talk about, but we are out of time. So I want to let folks know that they can read the entire iNewsSource story on kpbs.org. Dr. David Bazzo and iNewsSource reporter Cheryl Clark, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy.
Helping kids with disabilities, a professor from upstate New York is using technology to transform the world around them. He shares his experience in his own words as part of this Innovation Trail report.
I'm John Shull. I'm a research scientist here at the Rochester Institute of Technology, where I'm in the Center for Magic, RIT's Center for Media, Arts, Games, Interaction, and Creativity, where I run a lab on access and collaboration technology, which is how I got started founding an organization called eNable, E with a hyphen, N-A-B-L-E. And what we do is we make mechanical hands for children who are missing fingers using 3D printers, and we give them away for free. There are these new devices called 3D printers. Just like printing a document, you press print and the 3D printer starts building this object that you designed on the screen by putting down tiny thin layers of plastic, like a glue gun, layer by layer by layer, building it up to make the thing. A prosthetic arm these days costs about $40,000. 1 in 2,000 kids are born with some kind of an arm or hand abnormality. They don't get prosthetics because it makes no sense to spend $40,000 on something they're going to outgrow in a year. With a 3D printer, we can start making these things almost for nothing. Instead of $40,000, you can do it in about $10 or $20 worth of plastic. And it's not as sturdy as a $40,000 titanium artificial arm. On the other hand, if you outgrow it or you break it, you can make another.
So basically we printed out a hand kit, or part of a hand kit. This has the palm in it and the gauntlet. These are to be sent to workshops across the country where prosthetists and children alike will learn how to assemble these hands.
One of the interesting things about this project is that the kids that we're making these hands for are becoming inventors and designers in their own right. I was working with Derek a few months ago, and I was showing him this artificial arm that we're working on and explaining that we needed kids to work with us as test pilots and as collaborators. And while I'm talking to him, he put 2 of these models together and he said, "I'd like my arm to be this long." So Derek now has an arm which is extra long. He can pick things up off the floor without bending over, and he can reach to the highest shelf, higher than his classmates, because he's got an extra long arm, the so-called Derek arm. Which just goes to show that 7-year-olds and 9-year-olds can play a really important role in helping us invent the solutions for other kids and other grown-ups in the future. eNable started about 1.5 years ago when I created a Google map. And I said, if you have a 3D printer and you want to help, put yourself on this map. Or if you need a hand, put yourself on this map. And within 6 weeks, we had 70 people on the map, so I realized that we were really onto something. We created a online community. As of today, we have about 1,450 people in the global community. Some of them are people who want hands, some of them are people who want to make hands, some of them are people who want to help the people who want hands find the people who want to make hands. And we're growing by about 10% a week. We're beginning to work on extensions and new applications of this. Right now, we're specializing in hands for kids who don't have fingers. But some of the people who come to us, they don't even have wrists. Some kids don't even have upper arms. And so the hands that we're working with won't work for them. We're probably going to work on legs. And another thing we're working on is contraptions like these for people who've got all 5 fingers, but because of a brain injury or an operation, they can no longer control their fingers.
The kid that I'm working with had really bad seizures, so he had half of his brain disconnected, so he can't control his fingers or his wrist really. He's kind of partially paralyzed almost. We hooked his hands up to his elbow so that he can use it using a motion that he actually does have control of. When you reach out, it opens the fingers up so you can grab something. And then when you close your fingers, it actually also actively closes the fingers using the elbow action.
You know, disability is a funny word. Disability means you can't do something. It's not a disease, and it's not even a property of a person. A person doesn't have a disability. A person has a disability if he's in a world where he can't do something. If I didn't have glasses, in a world in which there's lots of fine print, I would be disabled. As it is, I'm just a guy who wears glasses. The technology of eyeglasses turned nearsightedness and farsightedness into a nuisance when it used to be a disability. New technology is going to turn things like you're missing a hand, or you can't move your body, or you have brain damage into a nuisance rather than a disability.
This Innovation Trail Report was made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. We're headed for a cooling trend. As it returns to San Diego, we'll see clouds along the coast. Temperatures mostly in the 70s, 80s, and a little more sunshine for the Inland Valley over the next few days. Plenty of sun in the mountains with 80s. Still feeling hot in the desert, triple digits there. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. You have a great night.